Welcome back to Alpha Bowhunting. I'm Phil Mendoza. This is part 2 of the using the rule of thirds for determining effective range. If you haven't checked out video 1, I encourage you to do that, because if not, you're going to stumble across this video and you're not going to know what the heck we're talking about. So check that one out first. This is part 2. In part 1, we've broken down approximate vital size. We've taken approximately 2/3 of that vital size for an acceptable vital size range that we'd be comfortable sending an arrow through. Breaking down, this is an approximation here. Okay, this is just for math purposes. This is just to help, for me to help explain to you what we're talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and break it down and say this is how I take it the next step. Okay, this is one step further. Starting with elk, you know, we'll say, okay, my acceptable vital kill zone is about 10 inches. All right, just by use of math, by use of understanding vital size and taking 2/3 of that. So then you can come over here and say, okay, well, at 100 yards, I can keep a 10-inch group. Okay, well, so then let's go ahead and break this down further. So we're gonna, if this is me, and this is a target, we're gonna go ahead and break it down into thirds a little bit further. Okay, so at that point, this would be roughly 33 yards. 33 yards and 33 yards. Okay, so by using math and understanding 10 inches is about where I keep it there. This second 2/3, I'm going to tell you that once you add in an elevated heart rate, uneven footings, just the general excitement, so many things, so many variables, that last 2/3 should not even be included or considered in your shot distance, okay? Not to mention the size of animal, body size, bone structure. That second 2/3, you should probably eliminate it in 95 to 98% of cases. Again, this is just a starting point for you guys to walk into the field and have thought about this. So this is to help you think about it. This is not law. This is just to help you think about it. Back 2/3, forget it, right? So then roughly 65 to 66 yards is now our maximum distance point that we're going to consider shooting at an elk because of vital size, because of group size, after eliminating variables. So then now we're going to take it into 2/3. You've got the closer third and the middle third. In my opinion, this middle third is where you should be considering shots like a feeding elk, where it's facing the ground, unaware, right? Unaware animal, broadside, quartering away, ideal shooting situations. That's where this takes into play. Once you start looking at an animal that could potentially be a little bit wary, maybe it's, you know, you've called to it and it's not sure what's going on, that's when in my opinion, you start breaking it down even further and say, okay, this is probably the category you should be considering shooting in. An aware animal that's going to be on edge, more likely to jump, duck, turn. If you're in this range here, especially towards the back end of that range, you're probably going to have problems. So that's where I say consider that first third in that situation. Now, is there times where this distance is in play? It depends on you and depends on the situation. I'll tell you that I had, as you break this down further, and knowing group size, and this is not my group size, this is for math, right? But I had a situation on a mule deer many years ago of which I was very aware of my group size, my kill zone. I had a mule deer that was laying on a hillside at 74 yards, asleep with his head on the ground and his arm up, okay? So he gave me exposed vitals all the way through and he was asleep. Okay, so I stalked in, but because there was other deer in the area, I wasn't able to get any closer to that mid 70-yard range. I was able to send an arrow through his vitals, and that deer happened to be in my last third of my distance range. So take this as a starting point, take this as a recommendation, take this as by use of a little bit of math and a little bit of time, you can walk into the field and say, well, you know what, I know that I probably don't want to shoot at an elk, you know, in most situations any further than 60 to 65 yards. Okay, you break that down further, you're going to walk and say mule deer, maybe it's going to be closer to 50 yards, right? And then so on. You know, when you talk about, and this really stemmed from the video I did when it talked about shooting your first arrow at your maximum kill yardage. You shouldn't be walking out, in my opinion, and shooting an arrow at 100 yards and saying, okay, that's my effective kill zone. If you use a little bit of math and you break this down and you want to practice that first shot, you know, before season with the broadhead, okay, well now it's probably this distance here, right? It's this distance. It's not necessarily this distance, because when you take into the variables, you take into everything into account, wind drift, everything. If I walk somebody up that said they could shoot a 10-inch group consistently every time at 100, and I walked them up and I said, okay, I'm going to put a broadhead in your hand, a pack on your back, and I'm going to put you on your knees, you should be able to zip that arrow at 60 yards and keep it in that kill zone, that acceptable kill zone that's going to be, you know, whatever it is, every time. This is where I come to my determination of how to achieve that. Again, understanding the different groups, the different shot situations that present themselves. You know, a friend of mine, Aaron Snyder, he talked about the whitetail hunt he was just on recently in early 2017, of which deer were dropping, you know, I can't even remember the number he said. It was like 10 or 12 inches that their backs were dropping. You take that into account and you take group size, yeah, you're probably in that 25 to 30 yard maximum range based off that first third that you want to be shooting at an animal because of all the variables. So again, this is a starting point. This is a recommendation. This is something, a tool based off of math and average body size and a constant, which is your group size. Use two constants to kind of interpret the variables within them, and have some confidence that you know when you're walking into the field, I know I can make that shot. I know I can do that. You know, I'm not even going to step into that category, you know, in 95, 98% of the situation. So I hope you enjoyed these two video series. Again, this is more philosophy based, in my opinion, using some math to help you educate yourself, be better prepared in the field. If you're liking these videos, ask you to subscribe, share with your friends. You know, don't forget to check out the Alpha Bow Hunting Challenge. That event really also feeds to this type of stuff where we're helping you simulate an elevated heart rate, get your blood flowing a little bit, shoot at some, you know, have a fun game to shoot some targets at. So check out the Alpha Bow Hunting Challenge. And that's all I got for these videos. So we're going to be bringing you more content like this moving forward. And check you guys out soon.